you have the narrative that people only care about not aborting the baby, but they don't care about the mom, and they don't care about afterbirth or any of those types of things. And so one of the things that just began to stir in me was, I was sick of that being something that someone could say to me. And so part of it was, all right, well, I guess the response is to be willing to adopt. And then I had kind of been wrestling with it probably for 2 or 3 weeks. And I just felt like, oh, I need to tell Becky. And so I did. I just blurted it out, like, hey, I know you're leaving, but let's start praying about this. And that was really kind of the beginning of the journey for us of leading us to adoption.
I can remember watching a video in Flagstaff probably, 10 years ago about adoption. And I thought, that is so good for other people, but I don't plan to ever, I thought, I love adoption. That's great. I just don't plan to do it. And God laughed, I'm sure. So, And then Mike came home from work one day and just, this was probably 5 years ago, and said, I was getting ready to walk out the door, and right as I'm walking out, he said, oh yeah, I just want to let you know, I feel like God wants us to pray about adopting. I'm like, that's cool. I'm like getting ready to leave. So that kind of began the process for us.
We said, well, this is something that is not just for us. This is something that will have impact and bearing for our kids as well. And so we just decided as a family, we're going to take a month where as a family, we're just going to collectively pray about this. We're going to see where God is moving and working and leading in this. And then we'll see where we stand at the end of that month, which was, I think, a little concerning because we kind of anticipated our kids would be like, no, we don't want to do this. But they all came back and were excited and like, hey, we're in, we want to be a part of this, we want to do this. And so, yeah, that began just a really long process with lots of ups and downs.
So I feel like the moment he told me before I walked out the door, I knew we were going to do it. It was just like, God just gave me this like peace and this sense that, you guys are going to do this.
Yeah.
And so it was just kind of a sweet moment to see that going in and knowing that. And then one of the other things we did, we just got out a big thing of crepe paper. And we thought, if God's calling us to this, we know he's going to be faithful through the process. He is always faithful. And so we had been married for, I think it was
13 I think,
years.
at the time.
So
yeah.
we just wrote on this big, huge paper. We sat at a table and we said, I just wrote, for 13 years you've been faithful, and we know you'll continue to be through the adoption process. And just wrote, it's not all the ways, because we don't even know all the ways, but just ways that we had seen God be faithful in our marriage again and again and again. It's like the stones of remembrance. And it was just, I'm thankful we did that because there were hard moments in the process. But we were like, remember, we sat down, we did that. God is so faithful, and he has been so faithful every step of the way, and he'll continue to be.
It was a Sunday morning at church, and in the lobby prior to the service, and a family had been here longer than we had, and we'd gotten to know them over our time here. The wife just came up to me and she says, hey, we know you guys are in the process of adopting and you're looking to do that. And this gal that they knew who had also been adopted, who was at that point, I don't know, maybe 21, 22 years old. So they said, she's pregnant, and that time she was living on the street. Life was really, really rough for her, not in a good place. And she just said, would you guys be willing or interested to pray about or consider adopting that baby? I said, yeah, we didn't have a plan when we got into this. We just felt like God was calling us to this. So that started it was probably almost 7 months from that conversation till Eliana, our daughter, was born. And so while we had signed up initially with some of these different agencies, what ended up happening is primarily Becky became the agency. And so there was no go-between, there was no mediator.
All along I'm trying to get her help. So I'm like, there's this shelter I've been calling, they have a space for you, they'll take you. No, I don't want to go there. And then there was this other home that only takes 3 pregnant women. You can live there for up to a year.
After birth, and born, you can give the baby up for adoption, and you can still stay.
I said, even if she gives the baby up for adoption, can she stay? He said, yes, she can stay here. We'll do an interview process. We have 1 room left. I'm like, oh, thank you, Jesus, this is it. So I get this appointment set up. She tells me she'll go to the appointment, and I go to pick her up, and she's not there. And I'm just like, just defeated. Like, there are these opportunities, and I'm trying to help you, and you're not taking them. And then she disappeared for a couple weeks after that. And so I'm just like, just telling God, I don't know what to do. She's gone, and I don't know where to push her. She doesn't want the help I'm trying to give her. And she's also carrying this baby that I don't think she can care for. And she said she wants us to adopt. I don't know what to do. God is so good. I had called and left a message at this adoption agency, and the lady called me back that moment. And I just said, here's where I'm at. Here's where she's at. Tell me what to do. And she just gave me all the wisdom that I needed. It was just, and we saw that again.
Over and over.
And again and again. You realize that adoption agencies do have this buffer of building a bit of a buffer between you and the birth mom, and we didn't have that. And I'm thankful for the relationship I got to build with her, but there were some really hard moments.
We just started praying about, like, by Christmas, that was kind of the hope. Like, I don't know why we wanted it by Christmas, but that was just a thing that we had done. And so we get to the early part of December, and it just seems like it's way out there and it's not going to happen. And then we get an email, and then it was a Monday night, and it was December 17th. A song comes on that was really instrumental in our move to New Mexico. And an email comes up from our lawyer, like, as the song's playing. It's like, hey, we got word, we're gonna finalize on Thursday, December 21st. And as I'm hearing the song, I'm thinking, man, I thought I moved out here for a job. God moved us to New Mexico for a kid. And I just lost. I mean, I'm ugly crying in the library. There's people, thankfully I'm kind of tucked away in this corner, so I could just ugly cry and not everyone seeing me. Oh man, it would have been a show. Like, what's wrong with you? It's 6 p.m, and here's this dude just weeping at a table in the library. Like, what's wrong with him? But it was just the kindness of God, and that was one of the things we just saw throughout. The kindness of God to say yes to this, to say no to this, to organize this, to work in this way. And I just think about how, I mean, and there were plenty, just so many difficult and hard things in this process, and yet God was so incredibly kind to us. And then I think about what you talk about right after she was born. They did a baby shower. And there was, like 70 women from the church just praying over her.
Yeah.
And
they just gathered around and prayed over me. And it was just, of course, I was just sitting there sobbing. But it just this beautiful moment of also the community of believers. Like, it's a beautiful picture. And they surrounded us, and they loved on us, and they loved on our daughter, and they prayed us through that process. And it was just, it was such a gift. It was like, I think everybody in this church feels like Ellie's kind of our kid too. Like, thanks for letting us be a part. But it was. I mean, I think that's a huge thing, and it's not just an adoption, but that's part of life as a follower of Jesus. We walk alongside each other when necessary and whatever comes along. And of course, we have a deep heart for adoption. So when anybody's adopting, we're like, what can we do for you? How can we walk?
What do you need?
How can we, be a part? But it was a really kind of overwhelming but amazing thing.
Yeah.
There's so many emotions still going back because it was a hard time and a hard process, and yet of course we look at our daughter and it was totally worth it.
Wouldn't do a thing different if we had to.
Because adoption wasn't in our plan, but how good is God that He said, I have this gift for you if you'll just be obedient to what I'm calling you to. And that just happened every step of the way, but God, who is able to do immeasurably more than we could ask or imagine, He kept doing that, and just orchestrated thing upon thing. Someone at our church housed her and fed her for 7 weeks. This agency called me at the moment I needed, and then they walked with me. I mean, they're just like, but God, none of this would have been possible, would have happened, wouldn't have even been on our minds. So it's just this beautiful picture of what God can do.